You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. The interview subject that you've tuned in to hear from is the one and only Devin Townsend, the Canadian metal legend himself. The reason for the conversation is two-pronged. It's to promote the 2016 release titled Transcendence, and also to talk up the May 2017 Australian tour. So let's have a listen to what Heavy Devi has to say. Here we go.
Congratulations on a stellar career. How do you feel when you look back on 25 years of albums and projects?
Really satisfied. That's the truth. I feel really satisfied. There's certain points where I didn't think that it would ever be at a point where it's at now, where things are pretty good, you know? Like, I get to do what I want, and, you know, I've got a career doing it, and good people around me, and I'm very satisfied, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, cool. So Transcendence, I love that record, by the way, and it sounds as though it contains the essence of your massive catalogue of work all on the one album. Do you think that's a record that defines all of your artistic qualities?
Maybe to date. You know, I think even the title implies that it's somewhere in the process of transitioning to something else. I mean, it always is. But I think with this record in particular, there's a real sense that I wanted to pull together all these elements of the career into one place, so I could have a real good definition of it, and then maybe I can move on and try something else now, you know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, as we mentioned, you've got an enormous catalogue. Length and breadth of your catalogue is huge, and there really isn't a weak spot. How do you keep your creativity at peak?
Well, I mean, I think fundamentally it just comes down to the fact that I don't think about it. You know, music isn't the definition of my life. It's just the outcome of my life.
Sure.
And many years ago, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to try and be a better version of myself.
Yeah.
Right? I wanted to be more at peace and stronger and mentally more capable and more confident and just all these things. I don't want to get worse as I get older. I'm trying to take all these things that I've learned through years of making music and experiencing all these things and put it into play as opposed to just collect the experiences and keep fucking up, right? So
yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
There's a part of me that as a result of that being the fundamental motivation behind it all, I mean, it can't not be at a level that makes me satisfied, because that's not the function of the music. I mean, if I don't put my heart and soul into the record, then number one, no one else is going to care, but number two, it's almost like every step of my life, it's like the record is like an exam.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what did you learn? And I'm trying to keep my grades up.
Yeah, well, you're passing with flying colours if that's the case, mate, then. So, there you go.
That's great. That's good to know. Some got better grades than others, but at least we're always passing at this point. So. Yeah,
no, agreed, yep. I think also, too, with you, you seem to have avoided, a lot of people obviously know you through Strapping Young Lad, myself included, but you seem to have avoided any backlash by moving away from that into less dense and less heavier territory. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, and I always kind of suspected that if the people who like Strapping Young Lad liked it for the reasons that I hope they like it, then whatever it turned into, they'd be okay with. Whether or not they bought it or chose to listen to it, at least it's coming from the same place. It's just a different aesthetic on the same trip, right?
Yeah.
What created Strapping Young Lad? It's just a frame of mind that I was in, but that frame of mind, it's the same person, whether or not it's strapping or DevLab or the Hummer or Ghost or Ziltoid or Terria or Infinity or
Yeah.
Hypercloud, whatever. It's the same mechanism. It's just a different time, right?
So, on that note, I was fortunate to watch you in Australia in 1999. It's one of the many times that I've seen you out here, but that was probably the highlight, if I could be forward enough to say that, because you played Ocean Machine. I think you played Ocean Machine first, then Infinity, then Strapping Young Lad. And I think
God, I remember that.
Yeah, big show. And yeah, what are your memories of that tour and those shows?
Barely hanging on.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that period, through all of that, with Strapping, specifically Infinity, that whole period was just such a mind-bending period for me, man. I was pretty confused, and I was messing around with a bunch of drugs, and
right.
I was
like hallucinogenics or something deeper?
Just a lot of acid and shit, and it was like, in hindsight, I really learned a lot, but I didn't understand what I was learning at that time. I thought it was something else, but in hindsight, I'm like, oh God, right, that's what that was all about. It's. I had the right idea while I was in the midst of it, but it wasn't until later that I got some perspective, and I was like, wow, you're pretty hung up on your own trip, and you were interpreting all that in a way that was frankly exhausting.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
I feel as a person now, I look back at all those things and I wouldn't trade those experiences. I don't regret them, but at the same time, the perspective I have on them now and the mistakes that I made while I was in the throes of it.
Yeah.
Hindsight's 20/20, and it's clear to me now what I learned from that. So when I look back at that period, I just remember just being a total fucking banana.
It's funny because that's at odds with, because we actually did meet each other back then. We shook, when you were doing the meet and greets with the fans after the show.
Cool.
You're probably the first. When I say rock star, work with me here. You're the first rock star that I think I'd ever met at that time, and I couldn't believe how congenial you were. So, it certainly didn't come across back then. You had a lot of time for the fans. You were certainly answering my questions back then. And
that's good to know. But I mean, I think the idea of rock star is a mental illness.
Oh, you know what I meant? Like when you're 19 or 20,
I do, and I mean, I think that there's a certain personality that maybe gets into music because they want to be that, whatever their interpretation of a rock star, whatever that is.
Yeah.
They're like, well, that's their goal, is to wear sunglasses inside and be aloof with a bunch of people or whatever it is, right? But but ultimately, I mean, the social aspect of doing music was something that I not only didn't crave, but didn't anticipate. So, I get put into these situations now, and now more than anything else, now more than ever, actually, I've got to be really careful that I don't open myself up all the time to everybody, because it just sucks the life force out of you,
Yes, I can imagine. You probably met tens of thousands of fans and the like through your travels, and it must be a draining experience, because I was listening to James Hetfield on the Joe Rogan show. I think he's saying he doesn't allow people to take photographs of him anymore. He's just got to the point where he'll do the meet and greet and the shake your hand and all of that sort of stuff, but as far as sort of taking it to the point where he's idolised by people and he recognises that the energy exchange is very toxic for him.
That's interesting. I mean, I would have no perspective on the level of success that he has and how I would react to that. But one thing I will give him is he's a really inspiring guy, man. And I mean, I saw some of that Joe Rogan thing, and a lot of the interviews that he's given over the past couple of years, he's kind of got this like father figure in the metal scene kind of thing, and he gets a lot of shit for it too. But unabashedly, he stands up for things that he believes in, and I got a lot of respect for him, man.
Yeah, I suppose it'd be hard being one of the most covetedly famous metal icons on the planet and having just about everybody clamouring for your autograph or to speak to you or shake your hand and all the rest of it. Yeah, yeah. You're right.
I'm happy, honestly, at the level of success that I have, because I get to play shows. I get to do whatever I want creatively. You know, I've got some guitars. My bills are paid.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not a public face. Like,
yeah, I understand.
I can go to the mall and dude, in my neighborhood, and the amount of people that give a shit is like maybe 1 in 500. You know what I mean? It's like, it's awesome, because I couldn't imagine living a life where you're paid off in jets and yachts and multiple houses, but the trade-off is that you can't do anything. You know, you can't take your kid to the ice cream store, or you can't, you know, go shopping for your mom or something like this without just loads of that crap, right?
Yeah.
So I can see where he's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, mate. Sentiment agreed with totally. And, mate, a bit of a different question for you. So, Gene Hoglan was in Dark Angel, Death, obviously Strapping Young Lad, and some of your solo work. Do you still work with him, or is he, or have you got other drummers?
It's unfortunate, but no, I don't work with him. I mean, I tried to get a couple of things going after Strapping, but it was a rough breakup, if you know what I mean.
Sure, yes.
Gene loved Strapping, and for me to pull the rug out from under him and the rest of the guys, we're friends now, and we talk, and we have a good relationship when we see each other. But it was really hard, man, because when I quit doing drugs and when I changed, and I had to tell those guys, look, I can't do this anymore. I can't be the front man for this. I need to get out of this. Their reaction was not like, oh, okay, Dev, we totally understand. All cool. They were like, we don't understand, but all cool.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
You know, so afterwards, because I miss playing with Gene, I miss playing with Gene to this day, because we're really connected, and you know, so easy for me to write with him and everything. I tried to put a couple things together, but you know, I think it was sort of kept at an arm's distance, just so, well, frankly, so, you know, maybe you wouldn't get like worked up about something and then have it pulled away again. Maybe, who knows, right? But
if I'm not,
when I see Gene, I got nothing but affection for the guy, and you know, and I think that he gave me his blessing during the time. Dude, I'm gonna have a kid. I'm changing. Everything's changing. He was like, I don't relate, but I want the best for you, so go for it. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I imagine he's probably got a bit of a temper as well, because that same time I met you, I met Gene, and I've been a lifelong fan of Chuck Schuldiner and Death, and I asked him if he was going to link back up, and I think I pressed him a little bit too far on asking some Death questions, and he just glared at me, and I thought, fair enough, I've gone too far there.
I mean, we've all got a temper. You know, my temper was clear. I mean, you listen to the lyrics and everything is Strapping. It's like, but sometimes you meet people at a crossroads in your life, and then you have these experiences together, and then you just cease to be able to relate past that. And it doesn't mean that he or I have any ill will towards each other. It's just my life changed, and I had to follow it, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. Are you okay if I talk about some of this stuff in the feature that I write? If you say no, I won't print it. It can just be between us.
Oh, yeah, sure, man. I mean, the bottom line is I've never played with a drummer that I enjoy playing with more than Gene, and I love Gene. He was such a close friend to me, and when I told him I had to leave the band, he called me and he gave me his blessing to leave. But, you know, he never wanted kids. He wanted to keep crushing metal, you know, and I found it was just killing me, man. Like,
yeah, no, agreed. Like, as a parent and father myself, I can totally empathise with your position.
Dude, and it wasn't before kids. I just realized that you know, I was putting up such a front, and then all of a sudden when I realized that I wasn't a tough guy, you know?
I know what you're talking about because I've been through the same thing. I know exactly what you're saying, yeah.
It's like I'm a fucking poser, dude. I can't get up on stage and be like, fuck all of you, and, you know, it's like, I feel like a fraud. I feel like a total charlatan doing this shit. And now that I've recognized that within myself, I can't do this, man. You know? And everybody, Byron, Jed, Gene, they were like...
Yeah.
I remember Byron like going, oh, dude, we've always known that. But it was fun. That was kind of why it works. And I was like, shit.
Well, and those guys, mate, I mean, those guys, their reputation has only been enhanced through their association with your good self, if I could point out. So I don't think anybody's been...
No. And we got together recently up in Kelowna, and we all had a good time together, and Jed and I keep in contact probably more than anybody.
Yeah.
And it's a healthy thing, man, but it was just really hard. And as a result of that, I think I kind of forfeited my ability to play with Gene Hoglan card.
Yeah, okay, mate. No, thanks for sharing that, mate. I really appreciate that. And I think I've got one more time for one more question. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Australian audiences, we talked to you, in my view, almost instantly. I mean, there was a lot of people that were raving about you singing on the Steve Vai album, and I certainly remember when City was released, it was about the same time when Sepultura split down the middle. And all the talk in Australia certainly was about a strapping young lad with a preeminent metal band of the late 90s, globally. So you're pretty much put on a pedestal because metal was at a bit of an ebb and Strapping Young Lad almost stepped into the void that Sepultura left. What's your relationship with Australian audiences been like over the years?
It's been phenomenal, to be honest. I mean, I can't recall all the epiphanies that I've had while being in that country. I mean, remember the first tour we did, staying in hostels, driving between cities in a van, and
that was the Big Day Out tour. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was with Alchemist, and we played in Wagga. And I always remember that. I always bring it up because it was just such a funny thing, man. But
that's the middle of nowhere.
Prior to that tour, we were opening up for Testament in America, and everybody just hated us. And then we got to Australia, and the reaction was so positive, man, that I didn't know what to do. I couldn't do my shtick. I was so used to telling everybody to fuck off that all of a sudden I was like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
But it was Australia means, I can't even describe what it means to me, you know, and it's like, it ebbs and flows as well, and I'm so honored that the audiences there stick with me through all these changes, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, some people I talk to in Australia like, look, I don't necessarily like what you do anymore, but I like why you do it.
I think a lot of people like you, mate. You're very endearing, and that really comes across in the music. And I think Canadians and Australians are fairly similar in that we're fairly down to earth. Yeah.
I totally agree, man. That Australian-Canadian connection, I think, has been something all along. There's a bluntness to it that I like, and I mean, I like to think on the global stage, you know, Canada, for example, as much as we may try and appear refined, we're just a bunch of fucking farmers, you know, and I think it's like growing up in a country that there's not a lot of people and there's shitloads of barren, you know, uninhabitable nature is maybe very similar to Australia, you know what I mean?
Well, it's that nature of living in a big country with uninhabitable space must do the same things to people, I reckon. Must be that.
Maybe. It's just colder up here.
Yeah, that's it. Mate, I better let you go. I wish we could talk for a lot longer. But needless to say, Australian audiences and fans can't wait to see you down here, mate. And obviously come back whenever you want. I'm sure there will always be an audience here for you.
That's awesome, man. I can't wait. And, you know, thank you. Thanks to everybody reading this. It really means a lot, man.
No worries, mate. All the best, and I'll be at one of the shows. I'll wave to you from the crowd.
Sounds good, buddy. I'll see you then.
Thanks, mate. Okay, catch ya.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was Devin Townsend, the Canadian metal legend himself. So thanks so much for listening.